Hey, what's up? What's up? So, if I was to give this movie out of 5, weirdly, I would give this a 4.5 for the first 95 minutes. Loved it. Then I would give this a 3.5 because of that last 5 to 10 minutes, that 5% at the end. Because that 5% at the end totally ruins the 95%. It's like putting a piece of shit on top of a cake. You have the perfect cake, but that one piece of shit on top just totally destroys the cake. I mean, people who've seen that will not eat the cake. Even if it was a part that was not touched by the whatever, it will not touch it. So that's how I felt about this particular movie. So Umjolo, Day Ones is a very, very good film. Actually, I wouldn't call it superior when compared to the first one. I would call this a totally different flavor. I would call the first Umjolo, Gone Girl, the young and restless. I would call this grown and sexy. This is much more mature. The other one was much more, it was much more teenager-like. It was young and restless. It was jumping everywhere. There was a sense of energy, a sense of comedy about it. It was spontaneous in how they approached some events in that particular movie. But this one feels much more focused. It feels much more mature. Even the sex scenes, the way they are treated in this, they have more meaning, and they are not outrageous, they are not raunchy. There's a sense of maturity about how relationships are handled in this particular story. Now, how they are connected with the first story is through school, because 2 of the characters were in the same institution. 3 of the characters were in the same institution. So we get to meet Lucky and the other character from the previous movie with the best friends from this movie. They just happen to be in the same institution. So I thought that was really well handled. I like how they handled the commentator, because this time is not annoying. It doesn't feel like he's not intrusive. He's far more useful in giving you those breaks that you actually need, because he doesn't pop up a lot of times. He popped up, a few times. The picture is beautiful. There are some very beautiful shots. You see, I reviewed a movie called Disaster Holiday, and this is what I was talking about capturing South Africa, from the outfits to the cinematography to the choice of music, basically the full production team. I think they did a great job of reminding us that this is South Africa. In fact, if it was thrown at you like around 10 minutes, you would have understood that this was South Africa. So I like the way they are able to capture the atmosphere, the vibe of South Africa, especially people around this age. These are millennials. So I like that South Africanness about the movie. I wish Disaster Holiday could have. I think they can learn something from here. And then generally the cinematography is much more cleaner. It's much more focused. I thought watching this, it did not feel as loud picture-wise as the previous movie. Colors are used very well. Shallow depth of field is used effectively to actually capture the characters. I like depth of field because it enables you to see and focus on who the director wants you to focus and sell particular emotions. Now, in terms of performances, I thought they were great. Number one, surprisingly enough, the 2 kids, I really love these 2 kids. They're awesome. As actors, that is. They were able to actually sell the idea that they've been together for a very long time, because they follow each other everywhere. And their banter feels very natural. They feel like real people. They feel like they've been together for a very long time. And now when you put them in the same room with the mom and the dad, who is very conflicted, you get that feeling that this is actually a family. It could be a family outside the movie. So that combination of all this, that 4 family, you have the dude, you have the wife, and then you have these 2 kids, that feels very, very believable. Now, the 2 best friends, one thing that makes it believable is the fact that the guy calls she called Zanella, calls the other lady, the best friend, who's the star of the film, dude. Because that's, and this is the thing that I like about this movie. It's very, very relatable, because if you've ever had a friend who is of a different gender for a very long time, you don't call them that person, you call them dude. Somehow you just end up calling them dude, and that sticks. So I like that. And yeah, the that idea of platonic friendship for a very long time, if you are a decently attractive person, yeah, you've gone through that, I believe. Or it's just but yeah, there's so many relatable things in this movie. Yeah, danger. I mean, they hit. If you are just, let me just put it this way: if you're just a decent dude, you've probably been in one of these kind of situations. Let me just put it that way. You may not be married, but you found yourself in that situation whereby your friendship, uh, accidents happen and then they kind of complicate things. So I like how that story is so relatable, and I like how it's handled within the movie. Just how much destructive making that small move can be. Even they captured, I think, one of the closest depiction of the real thing that I've ever seen is that moment when they first kiss, when they realize what is happening. So I like that. I like how that was depicted, because it's, yeah, I'm sure you guys have experienced it, and it's just that way, where everything else just goes to black, and now all you can think about is just the two of you. Anyway, the performances were also really good. The lady who plays the main character reminds me of Zoe Saldana, but she was great. She was able to actually capture all the different emotions that we follow with her. Now, for me, I liked her when she was not saying anything. Yes, I liked her when she was speaking, but every time she was just keeping quiet and looking at someone or expressing a particular emotion after something has happened, for me, I thought were far more effective, because the actress is able to sell emotions very, very, very easily. You can read what she's thinking through her expression. Even when she's just looking at a tablet, you can tell what's going through her mind. So I thought that was pretty good. The wife, I liked her for, I think, the first two acts. I think when she discovers everything, that's where I saw a bit of acting. There's a look at me when I'm talking to you or something, and then there's the F you, and then there's the door is slap. I thought that was a bit more theatrical, something that you'd see on stage. But generally, before that, when the family is together, when they're outside, I could buy that this is, this is a family. I could buy that these two people are in a relationship. There's a scene that they're just seated down having a conversation. And I thought that felt real. There was a sense of realism in the way they were communicating. And generally, the theme of white, black, boy, child, that I think is something that is, it's a hot topic in Africa, that idea of marrying a white person, and maybe the need for a boy child. Those themes are familiar. They are things that we've dealt with. They are things that we see in our everyday life. So generally, from the theme to how cinematography is handled, from how the story is handled, from the sense of the idea of consequences, from the production team coming together and creating this really polished film, because it looks really good. The makeup artists make all the characters look fantastic. The costume designers, surprisingly enough, there are things that you go to that you don't think about, but when you actually think about them, they are much more complex to shoot than you'd actually think of. You'd see some things and you take them for granted, but when you think of them as a filmmaker, they're far more complex, because there are scenes that they go to a construction site and everyone is dressed appropriately, and there are all these buildings being constructed, and the idea that they made that look and feel believable, I thought that was pretty cool. Now, so technicalities, cinematography, the guys behind the scene, they did a great job. The direction, yeah, because it's purposeful. It's purposeful and focused in its direction, and it's in its editing, because it's not just jumping everywhere. The scenes are framed and are edited in a deliberate way. They deliberately sometimes just slow things to enable you, experience what is happening to the characters, experience what's going through their emotions. Now, dub or sub, I would highly recommend that you go for subtitles. The dub does not do justice, because the dub version of this, when you go for that dub version, it makes this feel like a South American, a Mexican soap. It sounds weird, the ADR is weird, it just doesn't look good. But when you go for them when they're speaking in Zulu and you have the subtitle, yeah, the picture looks fantastic, and the fact that they are speaking in this language adds a sense of authenticity to the whole thing. So I would highly suggest go with the subtitles. It's a better experience than, you know, than what they did with the dub. The dub doesn't work for this particular movie. So this is a great film. Now, what is my biggest problem with this movie? This movie perhaps has one of the worst endings that I've ever seen in a very long time. I mean, with everything that they had set up, with the kind of movie that they had set up, because it's so clean, it's so focused, knows where it's going. There's that sense. By the end of the first act, I was so confident in where the director was taking us. But that ending, when that ending is a low-hanging fruit. In fact, this is what happened when it was revealed that she was pregnant. I went like, oh my gosh, she's pregnant. Okay, she's going to be a single mom, and that guy is going to be divorced. He's going to be living in a dingy house somewhere alone and miserable. And guess what? They did the exact same thing. That was a bit too lazy. That I thought, with what they had done for the 95% part, you know, how they were able to just keep everything interesting, that was lazy like hell. And I want to blame the filmmakers, but I'm going to blame Netflix, because Netflix is extremely sexist. Netflix is bad dudes do bad things. Dudes are the ones who brag everything down. Female characters are the best. They are, in fact, I think when you pitch a movie to maybe a Netflix production house, or you have a movie and they want it to be a Netflix original, I think the first thing that they check is, who are the heroes in this story? Where do the minorities end up? You know, are they the bad guys? They cannot be the bad guys. Black, beautiful woman cannot be the bad person. They have to always be the good people. White male, middle age, that's the villain automatically. Followed by black male, they have to be the bad guys. I don't know how you're going to do it. You just have to do that, because we need this to feel like it's female centric. You know, we need an ending whereby, we don't want an ending whereby straight people have a good relationship at the end, because we don't want a situation whereby the woman at the end meets the dude at the end and they have a good relationship, or there's that happy ending. The woman always has to be on top. Whether the dude is the good guy or what, no, the woman has to always be on the top. But you go like, oh, but my story says this or that. Like, no. That's not the Netflix formula. The Netflix formula is what the music industry, the pop music industry, was doing back in the early 2000s. Yeah, and it's going to get stale very quickly. In fact, I always go on Netflix to check what is new and what is African and new. Now, here's the thing about Netflix. Netflix generally in Africa is trying to condition young people, especially young women, about relationship. You know, relationships are bad. Heterosexual relationships are bad. You know, LGBTQ is accepted. Dudes are always bad. In every Netflix production, the guys are always bad. No matter who the guy is, unless they're LGBTQ, they're always terrible people. They're always either the catalyst, they're always the guy who are making the main character's life miserable, or they're always the guys who will end up being miserable at the end. And so one of the biggest disappointment for me in this movie is that they follow the exact same formula for this particular movie. And in this particular case, they are conditioning women when it comes to single parent families. Yes, I know that can be a good thing, can be a bad thing, but if you've never been a single child, you don't understand the challenges that come with that. I come from a single parent family. I know that shit. I know how it works. That child is going to be something, but I'm just saying, Netflix has an agenda, yeah, and they are really working hard to condition African audiences. And Netflix is not meant for men, it's meant for women only. At least for me, because that's what I get recommended. Everything that I see is just black women. And if there is a movie out there and there is a dude, yeah, LGBTQ, heterosexual, bad, LGBTQ may be good, but generally the dudes are bad, the women are perfect. So this is an example of one of those movies, and it's going to age well with the 95%, because I'm telling you, the way they were able to handle that 95% is fabulous. Even compared to the first one, it's fantastic. the acts, you know, the consequences, how the drama when things evolve, you know, putting you in a situation, because I am sure and 100% that most of you have gone through what some of the characters were going through. And so that idea of just being able to actually give that, capture that very well in a film, I thought that was pretty impressive. But then, yeah, you have to serve a particular whatever, and you have to show things in a particular way because it's on Netflix. And Netflix, as I've said, they have their agenda, and I've told you what their agenda is. So basically, that's it. This is a very good film, and yeah, that last 5% of the film is absolute garbage. In fact, that's the last chapter. The last chapter is absolute garbage. Everything else was working so well, but the last chapter is up. It's just Netflix. In fact, Netflix might have just watched this and said, no, we need a different ending. Yeah, we want that ending to be this particular way, which is kind of disappointing based on what had been created. The 95%. I really like this movie, but that ending just... I'm not saying that I'm not going to recommend this to people. I'm definitely going to highly recommend this for especially African millennials, because I am positive that they've gone through some of the things that we see here. So basically that's it. Remember, as I said, 4.5, 95%. You can even miss out the ending. The ending is garbage, but yeah, 4.5 and then 3 and then 3.5 because of that pathetic ending. So basically that's it. Remember to always watch what you enjoy and enjoy what you watch. I shall see you on the next one. Adios.